Our expert panelists joining us today are Dr. Richard Palmquist, integrative veterinarian and owner of Centinela Animal Hospital. He's an author, lecturer, and teacher. Dr. Christina Chambreau, internationally known homeopathic veterinarian, lecturer, and teacher. Joan Ranquet, animal communicator, teacher, author, lecturer, and owner of Communication with All Life University. And Brendan Golia, professional pet trainer, behavior expert, and owner of OC Canine Coaching. Welcome to Smart Pet Talk. I'm your host, Anna DeVere. In this special episode, we're excited to be joined by Dr. Sarah Brown. Dr. Brown gained her PhD on the social behavior of neutered domestic cats while working at the Anthrozoological Institute at the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom. She's continued her work with cats and cat owners for over 30 years, working as an independent cat behavior counsel, as a consultant for the cat toy industry, and has conducted research for numerous rescues and charities. She's the author of several books, currently best known for The Hidden Language of Cats, How They Have Us at Meow, which decodes the underlying meaning behind the wide variety of ways cats communicate with us, each other, and the world around them, empowering readers to better understand and advocate them. Welcome, Dr. Brown. What an honor. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
I would love to start off today's conversation with a really quick story, and it's an embarrassing one on my part. And I liken it a little bit to first dates, if you can imagine. And and it starts when I decided to go to a place called the Cat Cafe, which is an adoption place. Now, I will preface this by saying, number one, I was not looking to adopt a cat that day. And number two, I went in with overblown expectations. I went in thinking I was the Jane Goodall of cats and I was going to be like this cat magnet. And, you know, the Cat Cafe, by explanation, is a place where cats can be adopted in a very natural environment where they're roaming free and patrons can interact and see them in their normal behavior settings. And minute after minute ticked by, and I got a lot of aloof behavior, which was a shock to the system. And I felt very dissed, and I felt like I was in a dating game that I was increasingly bad at until I came to a big orange tomcat who hissed and raised his hand back to strike me. And just then a large gentleman came and sat down next to me, and I said, "This one's off, completely watch out, stay back." And the cat promptly jumped in his lap and started to purr.
Oh, no.
And I thought, I must be an idiot. I must have really overestimated my cat mojo. And then I was lucky enough to get your book, Dr. Brown. And I got to, yes, this was my moment of redemption in that I turned it around and stopped feeling like going at it as an expert is ridiculous. Why don't you start the communication with letting them go first? Looking at them as, what are they trying to say to you? And I fortunately have two wonderful cats, but for anyone that feels like they're a cat expert, they might be really surprised to learn in your book that cats do not meow at each other in the wild. This is a behavior they've learned to effectively communicate with us. Was that a big surprise when you first learned that?
Yeah, it was a huge surprise. I was a young student and, didn't really know that much about cats when I first started studying them. And so I was watching a colony of cats and I just assumed that cats meowed everywhere. And they just never did. The group I watched, and these were feral cats. So, I mean, I think logically, why would feral cats meow to each other? Because it's a noise and it, creates attention from people. And they generally, ferals, try to avoid people as much as possible. So, it was a revelation. And I mean, that wasn't what I was there to study, but that was something that turned up in my studies.
So that's a really good question that I have, or a whole area that you work in really, is how have cats adapted by being forced to be indoors, 100% indoor cats, often with other cats in the house, and then of course with people. So what are some other from the wild to the indoor that have changed? And especially if there are things that if we knew about that, we might interact differently with our cats.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wrote the book was because I think cats are so underestimated in what they've achieved. Unlike dogs, they've come from a solitary ancestor. So they're, the wild cat that they came from was, very solitary living and probably communicated only by scent, apart from breeding and raising kittens. And so cats have had to learn to communicate with each other and with people, in their whole domestication process. And so for a cat living in a home today, they have to communicate with cats sometimes and with people most of the time. So yeah, they've developed all these signals that have supplemented their scent-based signaling system. Tail signals is my favourite. It's my pet favourite because that's what I studied in my colonies. The tail up when they approach another cat or when they approach a person is a sign of friendly intent. So this means I come in peace and I'm not going to pick a fight with you. Tail signals, the meowing, rubbing, all the grooming, all these tactile signals that they probably didn't use, back in the wildcat days. I think they're just remarkable what they've achieved because, dogs came from wolves, so they had a sort of social set of signals already tailor-made to adapt to, interacting with other dogs and with people. But cats have done this huge leap in communication skills.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really interesting about that. Sorry, Christine. I think one thing that's really interesting about that is, a lot of people come into the office and they go like, "Oh, I just found this cat," and they don't understand that the cats literally have been, in a lot of instances, sort of hiding in the bushes and scoping them out, evaluating them as potential humans for like 2 weeks prior to the time where they step out in their path and go like, "Wow," and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I saw this cat." They don't realize that the cat selected them and not the other way around.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
They're very smart.
Head back to the tail again. I'd love to hear some more tail indications. And I think that could help people with their own cats knowing.
Yeah, I think tails have got a lot to tell. And those are one of the signals that, apart from the really obvious tail up, which hopefully people will notice, just a gentle flicking of the tail when they start to get annoyed is one that people tend to miss, in their house. So you might have a cat that's sitting on your lap that you're stroking and it seems very happy. Then all of a sudden, the little sort of flicking starts and maybe starting to get a bit annoyed. And that's a really good indicator of now is a good time to stop stroking the cat. It's all in the book, but there's a lot of tail, like when they put the tail up, when it's all fluffed up, that was obviously when they're, a lot of adrenaline going on and they're either frightened or excited about something. But mainly tail up, I think, is what people should look up for. I think it's just a remarkable behaviour and such a good indicator of what's going to happen next in a cat-to-cat interaction. So when cats approach with their tails down, they're much more likely to end in a hostile interaction than when the tail's up.
That's very interesting. Sometimes there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences in dogs and cats, obviously.
Yes.
But and I do well with dogs, and I think I do pretty well with cats sometimes. But they've told me sometimes not so much, and it's like, well, what were you trying to tell me before you swatted at me, or or is that swatting playful? I can't tell why you're swatting. You don't seem to be really grumpy, but you're swatting at me now that I was petting you. Yes. But then you seem to you kind of come in and want me to do it again. The tail up for dogs is usually sometimes a red flag, and then the flicking, especially with a tail high, can be very. Is that what you're talking about? Is a tail high flicking, or any tail with a flick?
I was thinking more of a sort of horizontal, irritated.
Horizontal.
You can then get more of a swish, and that's a really interesting one between dogs and cats. It means something quite different. So
those are very different.
Tail, there's been an interesting study about cats and dogs living in the same house, how they learn to read these sort of signals that mean opposite things in their language. Yeah. So, for example, a swishing tail, they gradually work out that, if a cat's swishing its tail, the dog should not keep, coming up for more interaction. That actually that's a back off sign. And
I wonder if that's a big problem with cat-dog communication and missed signals. I hadn't quite thought that through as far as that the signals are opposite, and that younger dogs without experience might have a harder time figuring out what the cat is trying to say and get it completely backwards.
Absolutely.
Well,
My dog took a long time to learn my cat signals, for sure. He wasn't quick off the mark.
but the other challenge is that often dogs are so playful, and so it doesn't matter what those signals mean. They're like, oh, I want in on that. So yeah. So
yeah, and cats don't really know what a play bow is. They just think, what?
Yeah.
What is that?
I wanted to ask about overstimulation. That seems to be such a big topic. What do you, I mean, I have some ideas about what the signs are, but maybe you could share what some of the signs are that somebody is overstimulated so that then they don't end up with slash marks or hurt ego.
Yeah, I mean, cats are, as you know, quite subtle sometimes with their signs. And along with the slightly twitching, swishing tail, they sometimes start to twitch their ears. So say they're sitting on your lap and you're stroking them, the ears might start to twitch a bit more. And sometimes they start to groom, which is sort of a displacement type behavior. I always think of as
Interesting.
You think, why are they suddenly having a wash when they're sitting on me? And I think it's to do with what we call this stroking satiety. So they like to be stroked for a while, but then after a while that sensation doesn't feel so good, and they get bored of it, or it's annoying them, and they don't really know how to express that other than moving off, which would be the logical thing to do. But sometimes they lash out, as you say, before they go, and it's just noticing subtle changes in behavior, really. And if you have a cat that does that, always stop petting them before the signs start.
Again, because we get into a lot of conversations about why would a cat not want to be petted for a longer period of time, and I actually think it has to do a little bit with sensory overload, but also a lot of times if you're rhythmically petting your cat from like the head to the tail, and you're just doing the same thing over and over, that actually can be a hypnotic effect, and it can actually take the nervous system from awareness, which a predator needs to have, down into sort of hypnotized lower awareness, which would make the potential predator prey. And I don't think cats like to be unconscious. They don't seem to care about that much. And I think that a lot of times ties back into consent, and consent is so important. And how would you tie that sort of into cat behavior, and how would you tie that into how do you identify consent in cats?
Yeah, I think it's really important as well. I think one of the points I make in my book and to everybody I meet is that to try and always let the cat start an interaction, so that you know from the very start that the cat is wanting to have that interaction. That doesn't mean you can't encourage it to have an interaction. So I would say, perhaps hold out a hand, but not right up close to the cat, and offer it your hand with the fingers curled, so you're not about to touch it, and let them come to you and see if they sniff your hand. And if they sniff your hand, they might rub on your hand, and then you can just pet them a little bit. And that's a great way to start an interaction, rather than the rather more straightforward way of just going up to a cat and forcing it to be petted straight away, which can go one of many ways with the outcome. So once you've started that interaction, I think it's very important then to monitor what's going on, to watch the cat, to be aware of whether they're getting fed up. See the signs I just talked about with the flicking tail, or the twitching. Sometimes they twitch their back, or they start to groom, or they'll move away slightly, or they'll just stop rubbing you and stop interacting. It's quite obvious sometimes, and move away. And don't follow them. Just let that be the end of the interaction. And in the same vein, make sure you're interacting with them in the right part of their body. So cats love to be petted around their head and ears and the chin, rather than towards the tail or the belly. And I think all of that is important to weave in. But as you said, consent is what you're looking for the whole time. Is the cat still enjoying this interaction? So
we can sort of biologically engage with these guys. We still need consent, but we can utilize biochemistry because they're making those pheromones. So if the cat has consented and come over and marked you with chin pheromone, that scent that's underneath their glands on the chin, that basically says, "I like you, you're mine." If they've marked you that way, then if you pet them with that location on your hand where the marking is, they're more likely to consent further. And we use that in the office all the time. I don't grab cats ever. I just wait for them to rub their chin on my hand. And then once they rub their chin on my hand, I can usually do what I need to do with them without too much trouble.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the way they communicate, by scent. That's their go-to methods, not our ways, which is, visual and vocal. So that's the best way to start a conversation with them.
All right, so I have a question. It revolves around dogs and cats, and the best ways to maybe integrate them from your perspective, because I get a lot of that myself from the dog side. And then additionally, cat or feline enrichment. It's a big topic or focal point for me in dogs to make sure they essentially have their needs met. And that can look differently, I think, for cats and dogs. How would you address that? Especially because a lot of cats, the majority, seem to be stuck in the house without walks or any outside enrichment.
So starting with the enrichment, hugely important, especially nowadays where so many cats are indoor-only cats, and even for those that do go out, because you somehow have to, stimulate them and replace that wild outdoors that they don't have anymore.
Right.
And also, if you have more than one cat, enrichment is even more important because you need to provide enough for, one or more cats, however many you do have. So basically, lots of places to sleep, lots of places to hide is always a good thing. Scratching posts, new things to do like cardboard boxes, puzzle feeders, toys. Plenty of litter boxes. So if you've got more than one cat, you need enough litter boxes, so that they don't have to share. Not sharing any resources is what we aim for if you've got more than one cat, because
Interesting.
And play with them. That is my biggest thing. Just play with your cat is something that you should try and do a little bit, even some 5 minutes every day. Just get them moving around with a one toy. And it's great for your relationship with the cat as well. And just bonding and generally playing with your cat is what they would do in the wild is chase things. So that's what they need to do at home. So yeah, plenty of things to do, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You can make your own toys. You can make your own hiding places. You can make a little den under the chair, and it's new. Anything new is what I always tell people to do. Find new things for your cat to do.
Just order a lot from Amazon because you get a lot of boxes.
The boxes are even better than what's inside, always. Yeah. And sorry, and your second question was about introducing, and I'm sure it's probably very similar to what you would do with two dogs, but I always say don't let them just meet each other. If you're bringing one or other new animal to the house, you have to separate them to start with, separate rooms, and swap scents. So you find a blanket or something that one animal's been near and put it with the other animal, and so they get used to each other's scent initially, and then when that's been, seems to be okay. I mean, this is what I do with cats mainly when they're introduced to each other, but they, you would then let them see each other, but not actually interact with each other. So ideally some sort of screen between their two areas so that they can investigate each other's smell and come up close. And that the very last thing you do is let them actually near each other, especially if you've got a dog and a cat, because often you might have a kitten and a big dog, and that's potentially disastrous if it goes wrong.
Or a puppy and a larger cat.
Yeah, or a puppy and an older cat. Yeah. And particularly with dogs and cats, I always say, if possible, try and have somewhere the cat can flee, upwards. So if you've got stairs, let the cat go upstairs and not the dog, or just a climbing tree, the cat tree would be somewhere they could, exit to very rapidly if they've had enough. And I think that's what you should always provide for a cat, to be able to get away from the dog, even when they are used to each other.
Are there any breeds of cats that tend to do better in households with dogs or are more dog-like?
Ooh, good question.
Well, I think those are two different things. There are certainly more breeds that are more dog-like. I think Bengals are quite.
That was my number one idea.
Yeah,
they seem to be the coolest cats.
Also, Russian blues are like dog cats.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
And ragdolls. Yeah, the ragdolls will actually fetch pencils and stuff.
Yeah, they're good at fetch. Yeah. Some
I
breeds are
see
good
those
at
in
that.
my those seem to do very good with dog households, in my opinion too. I see a lot of ragdolls kind of cohabitating very well and even playing with dogs.
So,
Well, they're quite
Brendan,
short generally.
I had the Brendan. I had the Bengal and Chihuahua mix, and that the
Ooh,
Bengal
Wow.
actually outweighed the Chihuahua 3-1. So,
yeah.
20-pound cat, 7-pound dog. That was a lot of mothering because there was a potential for one to get eviscerated, and the other was just the stimulation. I mean, I really just appreciated that they were tolerating one another and became friendly, but there was a lot of eyeballs on it because that's a huge ratio. But the Bengal is a distinct breed in needing a lot of attention, needing a lot of exercise, and a lot of stimulation. So
Mm.
you're compensating a
Are
lot. But
Bengals less, I guess, habituated to people in general, or
They're
are they
just
more
one step
wild,
from
or are
the
they
wild. They're just
right?
one step, one extra
Yeah,
step
that
from the wild.
100%. Yeah,
It's
and
like,
they
are they not
they
even
don't do
allowed?
well. They don't do well on commercial diets.
Right.
They're really like adopting a lynx or something like that, which
That's,
for a lot of people isn't a good idea. They look great, so people see them and they're like, "Oh, I'm really fired up about this," but
like the
they're
Belgian Malinois of a cat.
Mm,
yeah, and they're really
Like,
really individual. Like they just
right.
want to go off and do their thing.
Mm.
But we
and
probably should talk to Sarah because she's here.
that's right.
Yes.
and I wanted to bring up a topic about how much cats are like a barometer of extra energy. I mean, I think that's why like they don't love puppies. I have this cat named Queen Latifah, and she's stunning, right? She's absolutely stunning. And I teach a lot of workshops here for animal communication and energy healing, and everybody wants to touch Queen Latifah. And Queen Latifah will have none of it. And it's so, she's a magnet for the people that have a need to touch animals. And I love the people that have no need. They just walk up and they can touch her. But anyone else, it's like a hissing festival, and she just and I've watched. I take people on wildlife trips also, and I just watch like if we pull our energy back, how many big cats will like come closer to the Jeep and be in our area. But when we have that like, oh my God, I'm with the lion, they go away. So I'd love for you to talk about just how much they sense energy.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to my thing where, I think there's actually been a study that shows that when the cat starts an interaction between a cat and a human, it will last longer than an interaction started by the human because the cat, doesn't like that overpowering energy that people bring in when they start an interaction. So yes, the same thing. Just let the cat come to you, and don't want it too badly. Is what I say to people. Stop wanting him to come to you, and just pretend you don't really, don't do the eye contact. Look away,
Hard
and
to
just
get.
let the cat think about what it wants, and then make yourself a bit more interesting.
That is my mantra. Like,
Yeah,
don't want it.
don't want it.
Yeah.
It's dating behavior. It's dating behavior.
Yeah.
This is like a
Yes.
complete arc. It's like a complete arc for our show. Like if somebody comes up to you in a bar and they really want you, it's like just go away.
That's the right.
The
Yes,
person here,
it's
there's a look across the room. There's a look back. Then you go over and say hi, and you don't send them those weird pics on the phone like right away. So
Like Night at the Roxbury,
we should
right?
know this. Yeah, we should know these things. We just have to recognize that cats are different than dogs. And
a good one with a cat, actually, a good starter if you want to try and intrigue them is to do the slow blink, which I'm sure you all know. And so if you've got eye contact and then you do the slow blink, sometimes that will engage them and they'll go, actually, that's quite interesting. And,
Interesting.
I've done blinky eyes with lions.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's I have it on video. It's amazing. And they will engage also and be more curious, but thankfully keep enough distance.
I find that to be similar to dogs too, but they don't do it for the same reason. It seems to assure them that you're not a threat when you're able to blink or lick or keep your face loose or maybe yawn. I feel like it kind of diffuses some dogs who aren't sure.
I think it's the same with cats as well. It's a reassurance that you're not staring at them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Are there any scents that we have like that could be really off-putting that we can be assured, like colognes or lotions or anything that's common?
Coffee breath.
Mean that coffee breath or yeah, those are the things I think about for dogs too. But maybe there's something different that's more specific to cats that we should be aware of.
I think anything really strong, like strong perfumes. I think they just don't like strong smells. They don't like citrus and things like that. No, I can't think of a specific smell that we might have on us. And I do think they're attracted to some people more for their scent, than others. And they certainly seem to. My cat used to, travel around all my neighbours and come back smelling of everyone else's perfume and house, and it always made me think, gosh, she must experience so many different smells on a daily, journey in and out of everyone else's house. So yeah, I think they just avoid it if they don't like the smell.
Dr. Brown, is there anything you'd like to leave our cat owners, our pet guardians with today?
Yeah, watch your cat. Just spend 5 minutes a day, or when you've got 5 minutes, and just sit and watch them and see how much is going on. I think people think they're very poker faced and they're not, not expressive and they're not interactive, but they are doing things. They're doing so many things all the time, and we just have to look a bit closer to observe their behavior, and you can learn so much about what they're trying to communicate, and I think they're fascinating. So rather than just trying to interact with them all the time, just take a step back and look at them and watch them.
Well, I certainly am grateful for your advice. The book that came into my life timely. It is the definitive book.
I'm so pleased. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'd like to thank our panel as well, and Dr. Brown for this amazing show. And Dr. Brown, how can our audience stay in touch with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram. I've got your page on Instagram, Dr. Sarah Brown. So yeah, connect via either of those would be great.
And if anyone at home would like to be a part of our conversation, you can email your questions to our website. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for helping us raise our animal IQ.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've always been impressed that cats have charmed the likes of some pretty tough customers, from Sigmund Freud to Ernest Hemingway and even Mark Twain. And the truth is that cats choose us, and we don't own them. And we are very lucky when they do. We hope that you at home will join us again soon. Until then, love your pets. Medical information obtained from our website or the live show is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. If your pet has, or you suspect they might have, an illness or other medical condition, you should consult a healthcare provider. The opinions expressed on this TV program are not necessarily those of Smart Pet Talk, this TV show, or their sponsors. For all questions or info on sponsorship, email us at info@smartpettalk.com or visit our website at smartpettalk.com.